Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Sebastian Cwick from Amazon Lit. Nice to have you here. Appreciate you making the time, bro.
Absolutely. Happy to be here. Happy you reached out to me and, we're able to see where this goes.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like I had to reach out to you because the Amazon FBA business has always been an anomaly to me. Like I've always looked at it like I thought it was going to be a fad. That's the honest truth. I thought when I first encountered FBA, the Amazon drop shipping wholesaling model, I figured, it's just going to be this thing that people pop up with for a little bit, and then the market's going to get saturated. You're going to get the Google slap equivalent in the Amazon world, and no one's going to be able to make any money. And I figured I just ignore it. But like over time, I've seen like companies become really successful. Then I've seen all these like course providers out there just kind of just roll with like all this information. But then like I look at companies like yourself where I'm like, okay, you're clearly standing the test of time. You've built this this business where you've got the warehousing, you're doing a lot of direct sales and that sort of thing. And then you've got this course on the back of it as well, where you're helping others get involved with what you do. You've got like the full 360. So I'm really keen on learning more about that. And I know people who are like watching this are going to be keen on learning how to get involved with that, understand the business model. But from an entrepreneurial standpoint too, like you've got to be very entrepreneurial to be getting involved with that world. I mean, what's your backstory, man? How'd you get involved with it to begin with?
Yeah, I mean, to me, entrepreneurial really just means that, you like to live on your own terms and you have an appetite for risk. Because you need to have an appetite for risk. And because of my just natural being to kind of just lead with the carriage before the horse, I usually take action before I dive into all the analysis, so I don't have to suffer from analysis paralysis. Now, most of the time, I've been fortunate, where that has worked to my benefit. And in this case, when it came to Amazon a little over a decade ago, that was one of those situations where a family member had mentioned to her, it was my aunt, she had mentioned to her 3 kids the opportunity of selling on Amazon. And they weren't interested. 2 of them were in college. One was starting his career. And so she came to me, the redheaded stepchild, and was like, hey, so I have a girlfriend of mine whose sons are selling on Amazon. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I remember it clearly today. And I was kind of walking out the door. I think I had dropped something off to her house. And she said, yeah, one of them just purchased a home. And then I turned around and I said, purchased a home?
That what made it
said,
real.
Yeah. It really stamped it, especially when she mentioned a neighborhood he purchased a home in, a real prominent area here in New Jersey. And then it intrigued me. I said, this is his full-time gig? Like, is this a side hustle? What's he doing? Kind of got really intrigued. And I remember that night I kind of just went home and there wasn't much information. There was no information on YouTube. Really, all the information was central.
Like 6-7 years ago or something, or 10 plus?
No, this is 2012. The 2012.
Okay, so it's a while ago. Yeah.
So there was really no information yet. The only space you could find it was through Amazon Seller Central, which is their user interface for sellers. So I kind of went in. I heard that what they were doing was something called retail arbitrage, which is going into retail stores, purchasing products on discount and reselling them on Amazon. And I started doing that through wholesale clubs like Sam's Club and Costco at the time.
Were you doing anything else at the time? Did you have like a day job that you were like, this was your side hustle first, and then like
I worked in hospitality. I was a bartender and a waiter in New York City area for about 10 years. I did a decade of that. Right from
the side hustle.
Yeah. I was in high school. I was doing that. Oh, I mean, it was a side hustle for maybe 30 days because I'm an all-in type of person. I have an obsessive personality, which could sometimes pinch me in the you know what. But in this reference, it was probably a strong suit to have. So here I am, a bartender and a waiter. I've been doing it for a decade. I have a 3-year-old daughter at the time, and I'm really the money's okay, but it really is like week to week grind. Some weeks are lucrative, others not so, and so there's huge disparities, huge fluctuations, and I really don't have a solid foundation for this little girl. And so that was part of my initial push to really see how far I can take this.
And back then, like, you were able to sort of just understand. And this is like, yeah, because at that time you're saying that there's not much information. There's no, like right now, if you type in Amazon FBA, you get a ton of stuff that comes up, right? So everyone can get self-educated. It almost feels like the whole industry is like oversaturated already. But like back then, you didn't have information. So for you to actually go into this and have it work for you within 30 days, obviously you're seeing some success, pretty significant success, I would assume, in a short time frame. And you're going to like Sam's Club and stuff. So you're literally, it's retail arbitrage. You're just picking stuff up in bulk, discount, getting it up on there, trying to push it out. Like
that's right. I mean, it was as simple as they had these coupon books, and at the time, there was no limits on a majority of these manufacturer coupons. You could come in and you could take as many as you want, and today they've set limits. It's because of not only me, but there was other sellers that were doing this. But because of us going in, and we would literally take pallets off the floor. And they'd say, you can't take that. And I'd say, well, we're a customer. We're literally purchasing this. Why can't we? And the manager would have to let us take it.
Yeah.
And that was kind of our MO for the first.
That's when everything's
months.
new to them. Like Sam's Club, that like, so Costco, the equivalent, like they're just watching a dude walk in and say, yeah, I'll take that whole pallet, please. Like, what are you doing? Like, but isn't that their whole thing anyway? They're there to serve like smaller, like retail outlets anyway. Like, why would they even be like worried or concerned about it? But it's like,
well, their primary focus is still the customer. Their model is they consider themselves wholesale by selling this bulk product, but it still is for the everyday consumer. It really is. It's not a it's not a B2B business to business model. It is primarily for the consumer. But here I was still a consumer at that point in their eyes, you know, and so I was coming in and I was purchasing, you know, a pallet of Neutrogena wipes, and they're like, why does this guy need to constantly scrub his face? But this is where it started, you know, and really a lot of A/B testing. I made a lot of mistakes early on, a lot of costly mistakes, some that almost jeopardized my entity. But there was no information out there, so really that was the only way you could kind of garner any evidence was by going in and poking with a stick in the dark and seeing what happened.
Yeah. And so since 2012, you've been running this then pretty much, and you've not done anything else. This is your main thing still. You've grown it. I remember like when I first spoke to you, I was looking at like your operation. You've got a really cool YouTube channel. There's a lot of stuff on there where you're educating people, also showcasing exactly how you do it. I definitely watched a couple of your videos and I saw like your own facility too. It looks jam packed, full of stuff. Like, so clearly you've grown a lot since then. Like you clearly have. And so, and you're doing this. And this is why the model intrigues me, because like whenever I've thought about setting up a business, I know a lot of people do this. They think I've got to build my own thing. I've got to come up with this idea, a product, a service. And, you know, it's not always, I think sometimes the most glorious or glorified way to go when you're kind of piggybacking on the coattails of something larger like Amazon, for instance. It's like sometimes a lot of people will say, well, no, I don't want to do that. I want to build my own unique thing that I can identify with. Like, I think from your case, clearly you're showcasing that how well you can profit. So clearly you're having a lot of success right now. You're showcasing how well you can run that kind of a business, and especially if you and do it long haul too. I think that's really
I mean, quite frankly, I mean, what you see is that Amazon is such a large. It's almost like this cultural phenomenon. It is a cultural phenomenon. What has occurred with Amazon? It's revolutionized the way people shop, which is part of your everyday MO. So, I mean, shopping is incorporated in us. We whether it's food, clothes, everything we do, you know, we need to purchase products. We're consumers. This is, this is part of our everyday. And when Amazon came in and transitioned from having to stand in line to be able to purchase something from the comfort of your telephone or your desktop, it really just not only revolutionized the shopping experience, but revolutionized our lives. Our weekends are freed up and our time is freed up, and it allowed myself to concentrate on the things that are important: family, business, friends, and kind of put that other stuff where the weekends, when I watched my mother and father, the weekends were filled with traffic jams and waiting on lines in brick and mortar stores. So this next generation, ours kind of being at the forefront of it, kind of get to enjoy our time. And part of that was what happened with Amazon. But I say all that to say this: I saw this happening. I saw a trend at the time in supplements and organic foods. And so I kind of blended both. I did mention that it was Costco at the time and Sam's Club. This is when I was doing it out of the basement of the home that I was living in. Me and my cousin were renting a secondary home that my uncle had, us two, and then a friend. I was running the business. My cousin had his own career, and so did my buddy. And when I transitioned from that business to my first warehouse, 1,000 square feet, didn't even have a bathroom. I had to walk to another building just to use a bathroom.
What?
That's a whole other story we could get into if we have time.
Yeah.
But
You've gone from your basement, you've gone. Look, it's like when anyone, like if you're building a software and you're out of your home, and then like you then as a business person, then you get to the next stage where it's like you have an office and you've got people and developers on site and stuff like that. That's like a big like a great success feeling, like feeling of success and achievement, accomplishment. If you've got a wholesale company where it starts from your basement and you go to a warehouse, it's amazing. Like when you have like a rinky dink gym and then you go like that, you're running out of like an office building and then you suddenly like get an actual purpose built gym facility. It's always like a big transition, but you're saying, how did that feel? Like, how was that? Like that just, it's successful to the point where you can now take on space, albeit clearly without toilet space.
yeah, you know what? It was looking back. Obviously, there was some fear about taking taking on a space and now having this financial requirement, this additional expense that needed to be paid on a monthly basis. But really looking back, the fear of not doing it was greater than doing it, and so that's when I took that leap of faith. Where it was like,
did you have like enough like revenue coming in to know that you could cover like month on month, or was it the point where you just needed, we've run out of space, we need to get extra space right now, I hope we can make rent? Or was it, no, we're actually producing enough income where we can now just take on a 12-month contract or a 2-year contract or lease and then just know full-fledged that we can commit to this? Or was it, we just need space now, we've got to take this next stage and then hope that we can continue at this level? Was it like a surge of sales, or did you know you have the consistency?
yeah, I wish at that point I was so savvy and analytical, but really it was just caveman bruntness. It was like no space left in house, must build. So but that's it.
Okay.
We were selling a product. We were selling a lot of products, but one that was really successful that first year. And at this point, I say we because then 3 months into this, my aunt joined the operation, and then later on, my uncle started helping, and then my cousin started helping. And I remember the first holiday season, we're selling this product called loom bands. And it's making your own wristlets, bracelets, what have you. And these are just a phenomenal phenomenon. Kids are loving it, and we're selling 100 a day. And, before that, maybe we sold 10 products a day. And so there's no space left in the house. It's a factory in the house. I have boxes from China going all up the stairs to the bedrooms, in the living room. My cousin's just giving me the dirty look, the one that lives with me, like, dude, I can't live like this.
Kind of maneuver around all the boxes in there and stuff.
Yeah. So
That's
many
crazy.
signals that it was time to move, right? There were tread marks left on my uncle's front lawn from the UPS coming, because I had so many boxes that I was shipping out. The UPS was like, can I just back up to the front door? I looked around at my neighbors. No one was outside. It was snowing. It was nighttime, close to Christmas. I was like, yeah, I guess he pulled it right up to the front door so that way we could pack the entire courier truck with about 150 boxes.
Wow, man, that's crazy. That's a lot of hard work too. That's like sweat equity as well as the financial input. Like when it comes to those products that you were selling, like how did you know what to pick? I mean, I've heard horror stories where people have just like bought a whole bunch of stuff and they just can't move it and stuff. Like was it luck in the beginning, or did you kind of have a good grip on it? Like how did you kind of like read the market? Like I'm sure now you have a very structured approach, and then you have a training program. So no, like giving away your secret sauce might not be what you want to do. But back then, when you were kind of just figuring out, muddling through, how were you kind of navigating that? How were you kind of picking? What was your like that process like?
Yeah, so early on, it was, like I said, kind of just shooting in the dark. This is very early on. But within the first 90 days, I came to realize that Amazon did have a ranking system. There was yet no software. Amazon didn't even have their own selling application yet. So you couldn't log on through a mobile app yet. You could only do it through desktop. There was no software. Matter of fact, I was going into these stores and I would write down with my pen and pad the description of the product. I know it almost sounds ancient. A description of the product, the UPC, to confirm I'm researching the right product, and the price being offered at the store. I would make this list, go home, do my research, and then based off the BSR, which is the ranking of the product, I start to kind of correlate, oh, wait, so if a product's ranked this in this category, this whatever the arbitrary number is, let's say 10,000 in this category, it moves approximately X amount per month. And I started kind of building my own list of expectations for the category grocery, for supplements, for health and household. And so I kind of gave myself a very rough estimate of the expected sales I could see per month if I was selling these products at a competitive price. But that was my first real strategy that I had into kind of scaling the business and ensuring that I was purchasing profitable goods.
Okay, cool. And like when it came to like pricing, then like you're setting the price, right? So you're having to look at what everyone else is charging at, and like how do you do like price, like how do you price things up? Like, okay, I'm buying it at this, competition selling it at that. Do you go higher? Do you go lower? Do you like market it heavier? Like would you try and like boost the post? I don't even know if that works like that. How do you market the stuff? How do you make sure it gets to the top?
So today, plenty of software out there. Now there's repricing software, which optimizes every 15 minutes based on the conditions. But back then, no software. You would just kind of set the price and monitor it daily. And you want it to be up early and monitored every few hours, especially items where you had a lot of quantity in stock. And you would, you typically want to stay at the same price point as the lowest, because what would happen is if you dropped it below them, you could insinuate a penny war where everyone just keeps dropping by a penny until there's no money left on the table.
Race to the bottom, yeah.
That's right, yeah.
Well, how does like branding play into that? Like, you know how people like they can price based on how strong their brand is. Does branding even have a place here? Because everything's just a product, right? Or does branding come into it, like your brand?
So not at this stage. So early on, what we were doing was something called purchasing wholesale products, because we were purchasing from retail stores and we were purchasing everyday name brand products. So Procter & Gamble, Unilever, Reckitt Benckiser, the big conglomerates, they already have huge marketing dollars put into their products. So there is traffic and awareness of the products we're selling. It's really just getting the products to Amazon and ensuring that we have a competitive price that we're offering them for.
Okay, I get it. All right. And so how's that kind of that just sounds like a lot of detail there. Like this is like, when it comes to like entrepreneur stuff, like when I look at myself, I kind of classify myself as like I'm like a captain of a ship or like a visionary in the sense. It's like when it comes to the detail stuff, when it comes to like the minutia, like the nitty gritty details of like how to act the operations, it sounds like you have to be operations first in that business and then like the visionary, or is it not that case? Like, how big is your team now? How many people do you have running all of that, analyzing all that kind of stuff?
We have approximately 60 team members now.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's about 60. It's about 60 team members currently. Developers, repricing staff, buyers on the team, warehouse management, our account admin. So yeah, it's a nice sized team. It starts like anything else because I'll get anxiety if I start thinking about the entire picture. I really do have to break it into segments in order to swallow it. And first stage was see what the store offers. That was that stage. If you're getting into it now, see what suppliers offer right now. From there, after you do your analysis, bring them in. You bring it in. Now let's set up the packing of those products, prepping and shipping. Once you ship them out, now we can look at repricing. But don't try to figure out every segment of the business all at once, because if you're anything like me, you'll just be in a corner in a panic attack. So that's the way I handled it. I broke it down, and then once I had been doing the positions long enough, and I've done every position in my business. I even took some classes on development before I brought in my first developers, just so I had a basic understanding of what to expect from them. But I have this strong grasp of every position in my company, and from there I can start building out these SOPs, and every task becomes essentially a department in the business.
Okay. So when did you start like first hiring then? Like when did it become too much to handle for you, for like one person? Like obviously you're you're like learning different disciplines. Like every entrepreneur, you have to put on every different hat, right? But there comes a point where it's like, all right, like what did you give up first? Was it like picking the products? Was it the development
Exactly that.
side? Oh yeah.
Exactly the picking and prepping. And the way that I looked at it was there wasn't enough time in the day because now I was bringing in so many products. And for instance, at this point now, I'm in a warehouse. We're about coming up on about 11 months since the entity had begun. We're going into the first holiday season. Remember those loom bands I was telling you about where we're all packing them in the warehouse and in the house because there's no room whatsoever anywhere. So we're going into the first holiday season. We have this phenomenal product, but to research the product and purchased 5,000 units or however many we did took me 30 minutes. But to prep and pick and pack those products is going to take me days. So I
Yeah.
realized I needed to bring on some sort of task force to help me in that sense. That because the picking it's very time. It takes up a lot of my time, and so every moment that I spent in the warehouse picking and packing those products was a moment I wasn't sourcing, which was driving my business.
Yeah.
So I did a real simple math equation. I was like, if I could pay somebody to be in the warehouse, and at that time maybe it was $10 an hour, how much more money could I be making if I'm in a retail store or if I'm on my computer right now? Because at this point I started opening up my first wholesale accounts with some of those supplement companies that I was telling you about that were kind of trending. And I saw that that's where things were going to continue to shift online.
Yeah, it's like how you value your time, right? It's like you kind of like look at an hour spent doing this is like just costing me, it's just sweat equity, and I need to be, there's like so much more I could be doing as far as like revenue gen. It's like I get it. I I remember this one time I actually started the first book I wrote, and I've written two, and the first one was like trash. Like I was like, I hate that book. But when I had written this book, and I thought it was everything at the time, because you write a book, you think, you cover to cover, and you think, all right, this is good. Had a line editor come in, okay, and then I remember looking online, and people had this they had this like free plus shipping model where you basically you put sales pages out there where it's like, here's a book, you can have it for free, just cover the shipping costs, and the shipping costs like what medium, I was like $3-4 or something. So it was a way to try and get the books in people's hands quickly. So it meant that I had to buy the books myself and ship them out myself, right? Because the publisher's not going to do that. And so I was like, okay, let me follow the strategy here. So I put the ads out, and then lo and behold, yeah, they work, man. People are just like picking up these books. But then I got like 700 orders, but now I'm like, oh, holy crap, I got to package all these books. So I'm like, I'm trying to watch a movie, and I'm taking these books and sliding them into these like packs and getting the right, using ShipStation to get like a label. ShipStation is online. I don't know if it's still around, but at the time it was like this.
No, I used it. I'm familiar with it.
I'm using that, trying to figure that out, printing out all these labels, trying to get this thing out. And I'm like, okay, I'm not doing this again. They can buy this online. It can drop shit. So, but like, that was one, like, I remember that was like, give this up, outsource that, or get someone in to take over that, because this is taking way too much time. I'm now not making any more money because I'm sitting here packing, and I'm tired at the end of it. And that's it, man. You get tired. Like when it's labor intensive, it can just wear you out. And it's one of those, I think it's one of the biggest challenges, especially when it comes to businesses like that, even like, and a lot of service businesses are like that too. Even my parents, my dad, he has a car garage. Like we work on, in the UK, we have MOTs, like inspections in the US, and body work and stuff. It's like, there's only so much he can scale because he's genuinely worn out at the end of the day. It's like, I don't have time to think about marketing. I'm just thinking about dinner. And it's like, it's kind of difficult like that. But so like when you're expanding and you're growing from, like, I guess, stage to stage, because you've got this warehouse. Are you still in that same warehouse, or have you grown bigger now?
We're bigger. Yeah, we've gone through about 4 locations. This is probably our 5th.
Okay. And how is, like, as you expand, and again, this goes back to that, like, rolling on the coattails of Amazon, like, are you worried that Amazon's going to change the landscape on you, or are you just constantly adjusting because they do so often, or are they kind of good to businesses like yourself, where you need them to provide a safe and stable marketplace so that you can operate, or are they constantly changing things on you? Like, what's that kind of terrain like?
They're constantly changing, but I do think that the environment constantly changes, and one of the benefits of Amazon constantly changing which I don't like to say is a benefit, but really what it does is it makes you structure your business in a way where it's agile and able to pivot quickly. So, that's always been at the forefront of growth for us is, we need to grow, scale the business, but at the same time, not be so concrete and cemented in our ways that we can't be agile and able to pivot, because Amazon does change, and it just changes based on the market. And
Do they
there's
give you
just been
warning?
yeah, most of the time, yes. Most of the time,
Okay.
for most situations, yes. And most of the time, it's just new regulation coming in. Initially when it started, it was the wild, wild west. You could kind of do whatever you wanted because there was no regulation set in place. And then you have bad players come in, and that's when Amazon has to set regulations. It's not like Amazon wants to, because a lot of the things that have to be implemented, take up a lot of time. They cost additional funds for my company and for Amazon's and everyone else involved, but they need to be instituted because of bad players.
Yeah.
You've heard with the review manipulations, counterfeit products being sold, people getting funds from Amazon previously, sellers, and then sending to the consumer rocks or empty packages, but Amazon would already pay them. So now Amazon set a time gap between the time the consumer receives the product and when you get payment, which has hurts cash flow for early on for smaller businesses as they're starting. But
Because
these
what
are
is
all
that
not
payment term?
things.
Is it like 90 days or something to begin with? I think I
Oh
read
no,
that.
it's not that. The most is a
Oh,
biweekly payout from the time that the consumer receives their product that you sold them to the time you get paid for it. It's typically a biweekly disbursement
I think I got
of
that
the net
information from one
proceeds.
of those like forum sites where it's like, it takes 90 days. So that wasn't even qualified information right there. So, okay. So
Well, you
two
know
weeks.
what? They might be some sort of vendor that works 1P with Amazon, so that would be a different setup because then they could have those sorts of net terms. But if
Okay.
you're an Amazon seller like I am, then your payout will be structured on a biweekly basis. And once you've established yourself and have a healthy account metrics, you can even do daily payouts. It's
Oh,
just
wow.
that those daily payouts will be net proceeds from sales that have shipped at least 7 days prior, at least. So there's always that 7 day gap to kind of assure Amazon that they're not going to send you proceeds and the consumer's not going to receive the goods.
Okay. So you know a lot about this.
I mean, I've lived it, and with my obsessive personality, yes, I've lived
Yeah.
it for over a decade, well over a decade now, and with my obsessive personality, and because it's fun, I think it's so important. Like the reason I could talk about this for days is because I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the warehouse. At some point, I needed to look at, the sweat equity and the time being invested, and I saw that me being in the office was more lucrative to the business, which meant more lucrative to my team members and my family. But I loved, throwing on the music, being in the warehouse, prepping and packaging goods early on. It was fun. The day flew by.
Yeah. Is that why you like set up the training program on it? Is that you have fun doing this? So you want to bring people into it? Is that how did that come about? Like, is it just because you're just so passionate about it, or is it because you're bringing training people to come into your business, or you're just helping people get involved too? Like, how did that kind of come about?
So that came about. It was so I'll step back about a little bit prior to that so we could lead into that.
Okay.
But so I've told you about, I had some family that was in the business at this point, my aunt, uncle helping out, cousins. We're about a year in. And at that time, I started bringing this up to my closest friend, Eric, who initially, when he saw me in the basement, it, you know, with my robe on and my PJs, listening to rap music, packing products. He's like, dude, you're insane. What are you doing here? But now he's seeing the growth. He's seeing us in the first warehouse and looking at potentially bringing in a second warehouse. And he's helping out occasionally in the first warehouse. And I want to bring him in because, I love my family, but they have careers. My aunt and uncle, maybe not as computer savvy. And I knew Eric, he has an operational mindset. I've been best friends with him for forever. And so I knew he had that operational entrepreneurial mindset. And so I brought him in. And when he joined, now we had this collaboration where both of us were really pushing this beam forward. And so I say all that to say this: we're now into our second location. Things are moving along nicely. At this point, maybe 5-10 million a year in sales. I'm not sure what the number is, but we start for the first time seeing videos on YouTube. And there is a gentleman who's also offering an educational platform. And, there's a lot of people talking about it, this and that. And my initial thought was fear, like, oh my God, everyone's going to see this and that's the end of my business. Not really having the abundance mentality that I do now. Still kind of like fear, fear actually, helped drive the business early on. But later on, it can wear and tear you, and we could talk about that if we have time.
Yeah.
So I saw this video. Eric and I ended up purchasing the course just to see what it's about, and we couldn't believe the misinformation, the lack of actual anything in this course. And
so you picked this up to like find out, like, oh crap, are they letting the cat out the bag here? Are they giving away our secrets? And it's like, hang on, these guys aren't really doing anybody justice here.
It was complete crap.
I think that's why. I mean, that's the kind of like position I've taken with it for a long time. When I first saw it become like this thing that kind of cropped up, like I said in the beginning, I saw like a lot of people jump to it, and I did hear the stories about people, buying houses, having nice cars from it. But then it quickly changed from people doing it to then the people who are having the nice cars and houses were the people selling the training program on it. And then you start to hear about how like trash these training programs are. And you're like, so I start to think that they're just picking up on this fad, and they're hammering it. They're selling it like hotcakes. They're selling the dream, but they can't really be making that much money because people aren't. Why are they selling just the training on it and not doing the thing itself? Right. And so,
here's the thing. A majority of people that are doing it really well aren't selling a program. And unfortunately, a majority of people selling the program aren't doing it very well. It is what it is. You can't be building something for a year and now all of a sudden you say you've mastered it and you're offering this program. It's going to be very basic because of your limited knowledge. And that's just, quite frankly, what started happening. We saw this first person release, and then after that, it just became oversaturated. And Eric, myself, some of our friends were impacted by this. And at that point, we said, we went to an event of like-minded people, this community that we're a part of, Russell Brunson's Inner Circle, and we were at BGA. What's the name of Funnel Hacking Live? Is the name of this event that happens.
I'm familiar
here.
with it. Yeah, this is. You could even call me a fanboy, man. Ever since I heard about, I think I read .com Secrets, and I was like, okay, this guy he's just really, in simple terms, explained my entire sales funnel way better than I could explain it. And I've been running sales funnels for so long as a person in sales. I mean, a lot of the stuff that he spoke about, like the terminology, he just had a nice way of explaining it. Like just in regards to like surveying people, asking questions, in regards to like picking your, like what I would call my ideal target, like persona. He's like your dream customer. It's like just simplified things. And I remember reading this, like, why didn't I read this 10 years ago? And so I'm definitely like, I think as far as like when it comes to sales funnels and stuff, and like front end marketing, I think that, as a step into that world, like his courses are fantastic. And I definitely have learned a lot, and it's like cemented a lot of things I already knew. And it's just nice to hear it from someone who explains it so simply in business books that aren't so boring. But yeah, I'm familiar with the Inner Circle and the Funnel Hacking Live and stuff like that. So you're now amongst peers in the marketing world. These people are enthusiasts, hobbyists, but they're also like striving to self-educate, learn more, and of course you're learning like best practice. So you're amongst people who know how to do it.
Yeah. So Eric and myself, here we are. Maybe this is year 5 or 6 into the Amazon business. We've been to Amazon conferences. We've been to trade shows. So we're in the industry where, we want to be as enveloped as possible, because when learning a language, best way to learn it is throw yourself into the country and stay there until you're forced to speak it. And so we have this same mentality. And at this point, we decide to go to this Funnel Hacking Live. This is before we even join Inner Circle, and to be around like-minded entrepreneurs to kind of expand, because we're just stuck in the Amazon bubble. It's a good place to be as an Amazon seller, but we want to expand. And, kind of what you were throwing out early, I figured you were a Russell Brunson fan because you mentioned giving the books out for free, right?
That's where I got it from. That's where I got it from.
So when you said that
Let me
early
try
on,
that.
yeah. Absolutely. And so we went there and we saw all these people. There's these awards that they give out, these ClickFunnels awards. And we saw all these people going up, entrepreneurs, one after another, getting these $1 million awards. And the community there was crazy. The collaborations and just the empathy that these entrepreneurs had for each other. And Eric and I, seeing that there's crud courses out there that really have misinformation, knowing of people that have purchased those courses and nothing happened to them and nothing good happened to them. And the fact that, I understand, like, if giving your last dollars in a hope effort that maybe you could change your life and then you give it to something like that, it's really depriving.
Yeah.
And I'm a person, we didn't go into that part yet. If maybe we will, but let's just sum it up where my obsessive personality wasn't always beneficial to me. I had addictive tendencies at one point, so I know that place of deprivation and just pure just hopelessness. And so knowing that people were doing that to others really encouraged Eric and myself. And of course, there was also a money opportunity. People ask, like, why do you do this? It's multifolded, where it's beneficial to them, it's beneficial to myself, it's beneficial to my family. And so that's why I knew that in the industry, there was nobody that was our size as a top 50 Amazon seller at the time, that was providing this sort of information. So we decided, let's do it. We promised ourselves at Funnel Hacking Live that within the next year, we would have the most organized, information-packed course available for those who want to learn how to sell on Amazon. And that's how Amazon Lit was built. That was the beginning of Amazon Lit.
Okay. So it's like, I'm a firm believer of win-win. Like, just because, like, and the trouble is, I think a lot of people out there have been burned by going to, like, the course providers who are just selling trash. They've built, they have looked at, like, the Russell Brunson formula and the other equivalents out there. He's not the only one, but, like, where they've figured out how to put a sales page up and say, hey, I can teach you this. And they've managed to get some reviews on there and they get people suck it in and they buy it. And then, of course, it's not very good. And it's kind of hard. Now you've got, like, this needle in a haystack situation where it's hard to find the course providers that actually know what they're talking about. But I don't think it's like, it needs to, the way I see it is it should be a win-win situation. Like, we live in a capitalistic society. The whole point of this is to make money. You have to understand that if I was to teach something to somebody, I have to win in this, but equally you got to win too. Like, otherwise it's not sustainable, right? Like, if one person's losing out, you haven't got a business, in my view, that can scale up, especially when it's in the information space. So if you've got the know-how and the knowledge and you can put something together that can help people, I think it's genuinely beneficial. And you mentioned about, like, the fear there. You talked about, like, the concern, the worries that you've had going through this whole process. Like, it's like, if you're able to, like, if you can share that deep experience as well, like, this is how, like, if you were to talk about the worst thing that could happen with this kind of business and where you were at, and then how you managed to pivot out or transcend from that or ascend from that, like, and you're able to explain that and help someone else get through that problem too. That's super valuable. Like, so and you were speaking about fear. So what talk to me on that a little bit. Like, what were those fearful moments in your business and in your trajectory so far?
Oh, I mean, I'm sure you're familiar, as an entrepreneur, there hasn't been a year that goes by where it's not all over. This is the end. It's just that typical mentality. But what happens is when I find myself with my back to the wall, that's really when I push myself and I become more creative, and there's always a resolve there. And sometimes that initial energy needs to be channeled through something like fear. And it's really making that decision of, am I going to succumb to this fear of everything's over, for instance, and I'll give an example, or am I going to overcome it? Early on in the business, maybe $100,000 of capital, we were selling this chocolate liqueur from Costco. It was these Anton Berg chocolates that you could buy with different gin, rum, whiskey, whatever have you inside the chocolate bottles. They did so well for us that first year that the next year going into that holiday season when we have our warehouse now, we decide to go across the country to different Costco's and we literally buy truckload worth, right?
Wow.
And I mean, going up and down the East Coast from upstate New York all the way down almost to Florida. We were in the Carolinas before our U-Haul trucks were filled and we had to turn back. And we were doing the same thing in the tri-state New York City area. And so we're
You're
sending
hauling.
stuff out. It's starting to sell. It's a few months before the holiday season. And what happens? Amazon shuts down the listing and they deem that the alcohol content in there is too high for it to be sold online where they don't know if it's going to get in the hand of a child. Now, even though this item was sold in grocery stores, so in America, that means if it's sold in a grocery store, it has such a low level alcohol content that it could be sold. But Amazon doesn't care. It's their policies. So all of a sudden, listing is closed. We have all this product, and I think that's probably one of my first, oh shit, it's all over. What are we going to do?
Oh crap, that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's crazy. And is that so you survived that? And I guess that was like one of many.
Yeah, so it was one of many. It was one of many, and I think that continues, to happen. I mean, most recently, what's happened with inflation and production inefficiencies, there was a huge gap of products that were not coming in. So during COVID, obviously there was a lot of sales online. It really rocket fueled us. But then the opposite has recently happened where inflation has caused consumer product goods to go up, but it hasn't been reflected in the online space. A lot of competition, oversaturation. And so, we've had to learn to pivot there. And one of the strategies that we use and all the strategies that we implement, we also, encourage our Amazon Lit members to do the same and show them how is brand exclusivity, building a pitch deck and an infrastructure where you could illuminate that pitch deck and tell these brands, hey, let me be your service provider on Amazon, because there is a lot of work in that venture where they could be focused on their product line and you being the expert could focus like we do, focus on the services being provided. And we've built a hybrid model. We have our own private label. We do brand exclusivity. We still do the wholesale model. We just don't do retail arbitrage, but we're bringing in pallets and truckloads of products and containers of products and selling them. And then on that forefront, I've also looked at what other areas could be opportunistic with my expertise in Amazon, and that's been advising and bringing together this Amazon Lit community that Eric and I have created, and then a software. We've also, I've also created a software.
I was going to ask you about that. The Source Connect,
for
right?
Amazon. Yeah, Source Correct for Amazon sellers. That's right.
Oh, Source Correct. My bad. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's an operational management thing. I read about that on your website. That's software's cool.
Yes, it is. It's very cool. It's very expensive too, but it's very cool.
So talk about. Yeah, I know. I'm building my own one, and yeah, the bills are racking up, and I keep adding stuff to it too. So that doesn't help. It's never really just like the one size. It's like you constantly keep adjusting. It's like as you're building it out and you start to see it take form, you're like, okay, can you add this? I've just seen this on another competitor's website. Can you add that to it? And before you know it, you're like 150 grand in the hole. You're like, okay, crap, I need to actually get this thing selling.
That's right.
Yeah. So talk to me about software building, because, and I'll say this before just to frame this question, because you've got the high intensity merchandise sales, so I used to be involved with a different type of like wholesaling. So I would broker deals from like getting rubber from China through to manufacturers in Turkey who would make the shoe soles for lots of different brands of shoes in America. But I would be buying at like $100 million mark. So we wouldn't even make money on the arbitrage. We'd make money on the FX transaction. So we'd be picking up from Chinese yen, converting to dollar, converting to euro, and we'd be making 4 points on the transaction. So we had to figure out some different ways, and it wouldn't just be a one-man job. We'd have all these like different people in the mix. And so when I look at jobs like that, where it's a lot of labor. There's a lot of labor intensive elements to it. You've got a lot of brain power that needs to go into it. A lot of like wheeling and dealing and trying to like negotiate things and make sure the deal sticks and no one goes anywhere else. But one thing I remember learning about was this guy. He told me like, you got to get into software, get into the back end software, facilitate that process, because if you can digitize that manual service that you're doing, you can stack it. It can scale exponentially. And the beautiful thing about it is that all the development costs initially, or at least the highest surge of cost, is in the front end early on.
Yep.
Then you switch to sales and you can have this huge profit margin. Of course, as your business grows, you can anticipate a growth in expenses and operational costs too, because as you grow, you need more meatware behind the software, behind the hardware, right? But initially, once you've built it, you can scale it up high. So that was my belief in an understanding of software. So I started to like really pursue a software product, and I've gone ahead and started to build it. I think now, look, you're doing the same thing. Like, what's your ambition with it? What's it meant to do? What's it going to do for you down the road? How do you see it growing in the future?
Well, really, it was almost a mirror image of the internal software that I built over the past 6 years. So in order for us to scale, I knew we needed automation. Probably we were at about 20 million a year in sales mark when Google Sheets and third-party software wasn't cutting it anymore. There was just too much data there and too much customization that we needed, that I knew at that point we needed to create our own. So we created our own central hub and our own software to automate the procurement process, a lot of the analysis, and really just make it more efficient. And then from there, same thing that I did when I started building out departments. From there, I segmented into the warehouse. From there, I looked into how could we utilize this software for shipping. And I realized what I was building together was this ERP. Unbeknownst to me in the beginning, it was first supposed to be just to help with our buying inefficiencies, really automating that to now it's this full-fledged system that's incorporated in all aspects of our business.
That's brilliant. So like this is helping you initially automate your own process and then increase
in every department in the
efficiencies.
business.
That's brilliant. That's fantastic. I think that's the best way to build software. Like you build it for yourself to fix your own problems first because you know they're problems and now you've got a solution. And then if you can repackage it for sale, that's fantastic. Do you tie this into your training program as well? Like when people come in, do they learn about the business and you kind of have like a way for them to like, I guess, get through some of the sticking points that you had to get through manually with this software as a software solution? Or is it something that people pick up later on down the road or something?
It's something that people pick up later on down the road. We offer it to more of our higher level, high caliber, those sellers that are doing, $500,000 or more a month in sales, just because it really is very robust. And for many early startups, they're just not going to need it. They're not going to need it. But once you start building and scaling, you're going to find that, hey, this is the way to really successfully build my business. And that's what it's been for us. And then for our Inner Circle Amazon Lit members, we also have that higher tier program. That's something that we do provide to them and is offered to them. They're the only ones that are that the software is available to at the moment. We are working on releasing something more simplistic for startup users where it still can cater to them and provide them with all the bells and whistles they need without all the add-ons that could really makes it more there's a learning curve, let's say, which is my job and the Amazon Lit team's job for our Inner Circle members. But for the wider scale, it would make it quite difficult to kind of train and everyone. So we've made a more simplistic version.
Cool, man.
That's what we're releasing right now. That's what, when we were on the phone last week, I was actually driving up to an Inner Circle client when we were talking. That's why my video wasn't on. I was on the highway. And so that's kind of what we're working on right now on releasing for the masses, for the public, is this source correct, simplified version.
That's brilliant, man. So you're bringing people into the world and they can grow with you. How do you see like the landscape changing then? Like, do you see it changing? Or I mean, what about you personally? Like maybe that you're helping people get into the world of like the Amazon FBA, but like, what about you and your business? Are you going to transcend now? Are you looking to get out of the Amazon marketplace and maybe go, is it the traditional road now? Or is like go direct to maybe B2B, go from wholesale, that kind of like what I was doing, like wholesale directly to manufacturers, directly to big retailers, or will you stay within the Amazon ecosystem?
I mean, I don't see a reason for me to leave the ecosystem, right? The business continues to scale as as I build out these departments and I now have department heads in every area of the business, I'm able to spend less time uh, on that Amazon business, more focus on the software and on Amazon Lit, and then other ventures that that I currently kind of have in the back end. So I don't see that, it really is to me like it was the beginning, and at this moment where it continues to grow because of the hybrid model we have. No, I don't think we're going to be leaving anytime soon. I think there's a lot more room for growth as the next generation of kids become adults with family members. It's only going to become more saturated, and that consumer relationship with the brick and mortar is going to be just become less of, and online is going to become more prominent.
That's brilliant, man. Like from an entrepreneurial from entrepreneur to entrepreneur, like how do you I guess when it comes to like belief systems and like your sticking power, I mean that's what that is. You're staying like you're maintaining your position in that world, in that specific space. I mean, how do you like the belief system that you must have in yourself? Like what is it, would you say, that keeps you believing in yourself as an entrepreneur? Would you say it's just because you've the sticking power because you've just you're able to pivot and adjust to all the different challenges that are coming your way? Or is it because you see the future? Like, what is it that we would say is driving that belief system?
I think it really is serendipitous with the fact that this is something I love. I fell into something I love. Right. So, and it's not just that. There's a lot of emotions that structure this foundation. It's not, I can't say that I'm the most disciplined person or this and that, but fear, a healthy fear, when things potentially could fall apart, instead of me being like, oh, it's not going to fall apart. My mindset is it might fall apart if I don't do something about it. So that causes me to look for solutions and causes me to work hard, while me enjoying it causes me to want to be creative and build out and continue to see where I can take this thing. And all that, that's why I say it's really serendipitous. All of that culmination is the reason why I'm here. And those are my sticky points and why I stay. If it becomes something that I don't enjoy anymore, then I will be selling it. I will be selling it, and I'll move on to something that I can enjoy, because life is short. I mean, it's flying by, and it feels like every day gets a little bit faster. So if it becomes something that I don't enjoy, then it's on to the next project. It's on to the next thing that I will. But I won't sit in here and let my life kind of just deteriorate with doing something that I don't enjoy. And I've seen that, and I've been fortunate enough where I've seen that with my family members, and I've seen that with parents, and so it's unfortunate, but me remembering those moments as a younger kid has brought me to a position where now I don't have to repeat those same mistakes. And, that's the best thing I could wish for my kids is learn from the things I do right, but also learn from the things I do wrong.
Yeah. And so like, speaking of which, like if we're talking about like people who are sort of sitting behind the desk, thinking about quitting their job, their 9 to 5, a lot of people when they want to become entrepreneurs, if they were thinking about taking that leap, a lot of them they're battling the idea of whether they should start a business in the thing that they're employed by. So if they're an accountant, they just become an accountant that works for themselves. Or if they're if they work in insurance, say, oh, I'm going to open up my own insurance agency or something. Like a lot of people are also like contemplating on making those decisions, but then there's also people like looking elsewhere, like at what business to get involved with. Like, what would you say, whether they go into the world of like Amazon FBA or whether they go into a business, another completely different industry sector, what would you say would be like your advice? What would your advice be to them? Would it be to pick something that it works? Or would you, like, for instance, something that people can get involved with? There's plenty of training programs. There's sequences that they can follow, kind of like the Russell Brunson style, where, hey, you can follow this free plus shipping delivery for the book thing, or you can get involved with Amazon FBA if you follow these step-by-step sequence? Or would you say, and that's a great way to get involved with business, or would you say, no, pick the thing that you want and start building a business around whatever that is? Like, find your passion first. What would you say to that entrepreneur?
I would say that before the business even started, the year prior to that, there was a major shift in my mindset. And that started with a spiritual shift, a physical shift, and a mental shift. And I remember, and I'll never forget, because I was not happy with my life. And instead of blaming, for the first time, instead of blaming my exteriors, I looked inwards and I said, wait, something might not be right here. And I started on this personal development journey. And almost a year, it was about 13 months into that personal development journey that I started the business. And from that, I learned that what happened to me, because I can only speak from my own experience, is that my inside determines my exterior. The reflection, the resonation that's happening inside me is going to also resonate outside, like ripple waves, right? I could just see it continue. So that optimistic outlook that I began to have for the first time brought me to a place where this opportunity presented itself. Is it serendipitous, like I said early on? Maybe. Could it also have been law of attraction? Possibly. All I know is I could speak the facts, which is when I started working on myself, the external started to change and these opportunities presented themselves. So I would say if you're in a place where maybe you think that your life could be in a better position than it is, start with the personal development, that inner search. Look, feel that gut, that intuition of where you should be going and driving yourself instead of turning on the TV. Sit with yourself for a little bit, and those answers will reveal themselves. And then from there, find what you love. Just find what you love. And what it will be, I don't know, but I know that inside of us, if we spend enough time with ourselves, it will come. We'll know. Most of us already know. It's just the noise of the radio, the TV, the social media. There's so much noise around us that we don't give ourselves enough time and attention to hear it.
Okay, man. And so with that said, and the fact that you also have a training program that directly helps people get involved with the world that you're in, that you're an expert in, that you have a business in that's fully operational, that you have been running since 2012. In light of that fact, I mean, how can people find you? Like a lot of people that I'll have, watching this show will be people that are considering either going into business in their own profession or expertise. Yeah. But there's also those people who are going to be thinking, all right, I do want that roadmap. I do want that sequence. I do want to follow that predefined plan. How will they reach you? How could they get involved with you?
Yeah, so if you want to take a bite at Amazon, there's no better community than the Amazon Lit community. AmazonLit.com, AmazonLIT.com. The empathy, the genuinity of the entire community there's nothing else like that out there. And then, of course, the information that Eric and I provide. On a weekly basis, we're on calls with these group members, and we're going through any problems that they might have, bringing up any changes and strategies that might be occurring in the Amazon space. And really, we're growing together. Last night I was on the group call till about 1 a.m. If that's the venture that you want to go towards, I would highly recommend going with somebody that is doing it today. So make sure whoever you choose, whether it's Sebastian and Amazon Lit or anyone else, ask the questions what their business is doing in whatever venture they're teaching, how it's performing today.
And how long they've been in that business.
And how long they've been in it. Exactly. You took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah, you've been around. I mean, that's it. When I was looking at working with, having this conversation with someone, I was like, it can't just be one of those guys on the, with a training program. You've been running this, independently as a warehouse, going through the grind and then you built the course. And I felt that's what I needed to have that conversation with you instead of some of the other people that I was reaching out to. But I really appreciate you giving us the time here to give us the insight, man. And also sharing a bit about your journey, the trials and your tribulations. I appreciate you being in here. And I hope I can speak to you soon. I'd like to have a little look at that software as well. And did you say it was completed and finished, or was it still under development? What's going on with that? Is it ready to rock and roll?
Oh, it's being used. It's being used by about 50 users right now. We're part of our inner circle members. Their companies and their team members are utilizing it right now. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we're gonna have to check that in with you.
After this, I'm doing a tutorial with the new inner circle member on Source Correct. If you want to join in.
Yeah, brilliant, man. That's awesome. I think I might have to. And that's literally, so I'm going to check in with you in 6 months from now, see how things are. We'll try and get you back on, because I'm trying to document other companies' journeys and just see how things are going, because the world is constantly changing with AI and blockchains and the payment gateways changing, all that kind of stuff. It'd be nice to learn some of the news between this time frame and what happens, let's say 6 months time or so. And we can talk about some of the challenges, because this has kind of been you as a story, your origin story. And the next conversation I think we can have will be, okay, between now and then, the things that have happened in the world, shifts and changes that have happened with your market. Why don't we talk about how you've pivoted, how you've adjusted, how your people in your training programs have had to adjust, and how they've been successful, anything that's been unsuccessful. It'd be great to catch up with you again.
I love that.
That's brilliant.
I love that. Yeah, let's keep the momentum going.
All right, brother. Till next time then, man.
Absolutely. I'll talk to you soon.